Before Google. Before Amazon. Before anyone had ever heard the word online, ordinary Americans were quietly building income streams so simple, so effective, and so completely forgotten that when you hear them today they sound almost too easy to be real. But every single one of these worked. And the ones that still work today are marked not by complexity but by the same thing that made them work 100 years ago: they solve a problem someone actually has. Number 1. Classified ad selling. Long before Craigslist, before Facebook Marketplace, before eBay existed as anything other than a fever dream, Americans bought and sold everything through the classified section of their local newspaper. 3 lines of text, maybe 4. Item, condition, price, phone number. That was the entire listing. People sold furniture, tools, cars, livestock, land, services, and handmade goods through classified ads for decades and built real secondary incomes doing it consistently. The cost of the ad was negligible. The reach was the entire local community. Savvy operators would buy items cheap at estate sales and yard sales on Saturday morning and have a classified ad running in Monday's paper before the week started. The flip happened before most people even knew the item had changed hands. The model is identical to what resellers do today on every digital platform available. The marketplace changed. The logic never did. Number 2. Door-to-door services. Before Yelp reviews and Google business profiles existed to build credibility for you, Americans built it the original way, by showing up at the door and doing good work. Lawn care, window washing, gutter cleaning, knife sharpening, shoe repair, house painting. Men and women with a skill and a willingness to knock on doors built steady client bases one conversation at a time. The pitch was simple because the need was obvious. The customer could see the overgrown lawn from where they were standing. The best door-to-door service workers understood one thing above everything else: a happy customer on one block was an automatic introduction to every neighbor on that block. Word of mouth traveled at the speed of a fence conversation, and it cost absolutely nothing. The workers who showed up on time, did clean work, and charged a fair price built routes through entire neighborhoods that paid them reliably every single week for years. Number 3. Mail order businesses. Your grandmother could run a legitimate mail order business from her kitchen table in 1953 using nothing but a classified ad, a post office box, and a product worth selling. Handmade crafts, specialty foods, seed packets, sewing patterns, homemade remedies, informational booklets. All of it moved through the postal service to customers across the country who had never set foot in the seller's town. Some of the most successful early American mail order operators were farm wives who turned a surplus skill or a regional specialty into a national product without ever leaving the county. The postal service was their internet. The classified ad was their storefront. The repeat customer who wrote back with another order was their algorithm. Etsy, Amazon Handmade, and every direct-to-consumer brand operating today is the digital version of what millions of Americans built from kitchen tables with nothing but stamps and something worth selling. Number 4. Teaching a skill privately. If you knew something that someone else needed to know, you had a business. Piano lessons, typing instruction, bookkeeping, sewing, language tutoring, carpentry, cooking. Americans with genuine expertise in anything tradable charged by the hour and built steady client lists through word of mouth alone. The overhead was zero. The startup cost was whatever expertise you had already spent years accumulating. A piano teacher with 8 students meeting twice a week each was generating income that competed with a full-time salary, on her own schedule, in her own home, with no boss and no commute. The private lesson model is one of the oldest and most durable income structures in American history because it requires nothing except knowing something useful and being able to explain it clearly to someone who doesn't know it yet. Every online course, every coaching program, every Skillshare instructor operating today is doing the exact same thing. The delivery mechanism changed. The transaction is identical. Number 5. Fixing and flipping household goods. A broken item at a yard sale was not trash. It was inventory at a discount. Americans who understood how things worked, radios, furniture, small engines, bicycles, sewing machines, appliances, bought broken goods for almost nothing, repaired them with inexpensive parts and their own labor, and resold them at full working price through classified ads or at flea markets. The margins were extraordinary because most people lacked either the skill or the patience to repair things themselves and would rather pay working price for something that already functioned. The repair worker understood that the gap between broken price and working price was pure profit, and that gap existed everywhere all the time in every community in America. Nothing about this model has changed. The platforms are faster and the audience is larger, but the fundamental transaction, buy broken cheap, fix it, sell it working, is the same one that generated side income for millions of Americans long before the internet gave it a name. Number 6. Renting out space and equipment. If you own something useful that sat idle for part of the week, you had a rental business. Farmers rented out equipment to neighboring farms during off-peak weeks. Families rented spare bedrooms to boarders, travelers, and seasonal workers. People with trucks rented hauling services by the hour. Those with large freezers rented cold storage space to neighbors without one. The principle was simple and ruthlessly practical. An asset sitting unused is money sitting still, and money sitting still is money declining in real terms. Every square foot of space and every piece of equipment that generated income while you weren't using it was working for you without requiring any additional labor. The families who thought this way consistently converted fixed costs into income streams and assets into businesses. Airbnb, Turo, and every peer-to-peer rental platform operating today automated a behavior that your grandparents practiced manually with a handshake and a weekly cash payment. Number 7. Growing and selling produce. A backyard garden in the right location was not a hobby. It was a small agricultural business. Americans with productive gardens and a surplus beyond what the family needed sold the remainder at roadside stands, to local grocers, to neighbors, and at farmers' markets that have existed in American towns since the colonial era. The economics were straightforward. Seeds cost almost nothing. Labor was the family's own. The product was something every household in America needed every single week without exception. The roadside produce stand required no license, no storefront, no advertising, and no inventory beyond what the soil produced. Families that scaled this planted specifically for market, high-demand crops, high-yield varieties, things that kept well enough to sell across a full week. Some rural families generated a meaningful portion of their annual income from a half-acre of well-managed garden and a handwritten sign at the end of the driveway. Number 8. Sewing and alterations. A sewing machine and genuine skill with it was a complete business. Americans paid consistently for alterations, repairs, custom garments, curtains, upholstery, and specialty items that off-the-rack retail couldn't provide. The seamstress who worked from home had almost no overhead: a machine, thread, fabric, and her own trained hands. She set her own hours, chose her own clients, and built her reputation entirely through the quality of what she produced. In an era when clothes were expensive relative to income and expected to last for years, alterations and repairs were not occasional luxuries. They were regular household expenses that the skilled seamstress collected on steadily week after week. The market for custom sewing, alterations, and handmade goods has not shrunk. If anything, the appetite for well-made personalized clothing has grown as fast fashion has made mass-produced clothing feel disposable and cheap. Number 9. Hauling and moving. If you owned a truck or a strong horse and wagon, you owned a logistics business. Americans paid for hauling constantly: furniture moves, supply deliveries, farm equipment transport, debris removal, firewood delivery. The person with the vehicle and the willingness to do heavy work on demand was never short of customers because the need was permanent and the barrier to entry for customers was simply not owning the right equipment. The hauler who showed up when he said he would, handled things carefully, and charged a fair rate built a reputation that sent him more work than he could always handle. Every moving company, every junk removal service, every delivery operation running today is the direct descendant of the man with a truck and a good reputation who built his entire business on showing up and doing what he said he would do.